So we've got a couple of air nailers here right now. This one's manufactured by Hitachi. This one is manufactured by Metabo or Metabo, however you pronounce that. Now, from my understanding, this company has taken over manufacturing process of the Hitachi. So these are pneumatic powered or air powered roofing nailers. We're going to focus on the Hitachi today, so I'm going to get this out of the way. So, first things first, we've got our nails out of it, and since we're not plugged in, this is not under pressure at all. The purpose of this video is to give you a little bit more confidence when trying to figure out, trying to troubleshoot what's wrong with your roofing nailer. Let's say you're having a lot of misfires, let's say you've got an air leak. There's a number of things that can go wrong with these guns. They're generally very reliable, but over time the O-rings, seals, gaskets will wear out. So as a prevention of that, you can use air tool oil. If you're using your gun on a daily basis, excuse me, you'll want to put a few drops in at the beginning of the day of the air tool oil, and that blows through and freshens your O-rings and your seals. It keeps them from drying out. So if you're using your gun a lot, maybe you want to put a few drops in the morning and a few drops in the afternoon if you're on a job site. Excuse me. Now, to begin taking this apart, you'll likely have an Allen key to start taking this head off. Or if you do have a bit attachment for an Allen key style head, that would speed up the process and make it a little bit more convenient for you. Now I'm going to put my parts, try to keep them in order. Looks like that guard is broken. Not too important. Now, when pulling this head off, we've got 4 screws that we took out of there. We want to be real careful because there's a gasket, a thin paper material that seals in between the two metals. Right in here, there will be a gasket, and that may want to stick to both of these parts, but if we're lucky, it just pulls right out. And this is the gasket I was talking about right here. And I'm just going to take my dental pick, super handy to have on these little repair jobs. And that's the gasket right there. So we're going to keep that over there for now. Since we have that actually off, there's a couple things you may want to keep an eye on here. We want to make sure that this is nice and flat and that there's no burrs, so that when this gasket goes back on, it makes a nice seal in between the two metals. We want to check in here to make sure there's no debris. Now I'm kind of getting my dental pick caught up on a little bit of debris right there. I don't know if you can hear that, but that was, I think, a shingle granule in there, I'm guessing. That could have been an issue. Now, to pop this portion out in here, you would pull off these 2 screws at the back, again with the same size Allen key or the the drill bit that you might have, and get in there and clean things out. So we're going to put that up there for now. Now, how to get this cylinder out. We're going to steal a couple screws from over here. we're going to pop them in here. And we're going to pull up. Nice and easy, just kind of rocking back and forth slightly. And that part is out. Now, oops, we have this portion out. We have an O-ring here on the outside and an O-ring on the inside. This is just really dirty, really grimy. We're really going to want to clean that up. And there's a couple of different ways you can do that. I mean, we can just wipe it down, but it would be ideal to really get in there after we remove the O-rings and just clean it with some brake cleaner. We won't want to clean that with brake cleaner while the O-rings are still on, but let's pull these O-rings out with a dental pick. Just be very careful. Go in, pop one out, and we've popped the, whoops, not quite, and we pop that guy out. So we're going to put those there for now. Now, how do we get this part out now? Sometimes they'll pull out, but if we have a little bit of trouble with them, what we can do is just put something on there that's going to protect it. And I just use some channel locks, just very nice and easy. Pry, and we pop that out. And that is pretty grimy. That's what it's looking like inside this gun right now. It's pretty dirty. So we're going to place that there for now. One of the things that I really like to replace, just because it's it's a point of failure all the time, it seems. This is the piston here, and this is the piston O-ring. I don't know if you heard that. That's Bailey, my Australian Shepherd and Border Collie, getting bored and grunting and groaning over there. So, that's the piston O-ring. Sometimes that is a point of failure, that piston O-ring. It is grimy in there, so I would like to get a couple more of the O-rings out. Now inside, if you can see here, there's an O-ring here, and there's an O-ring here. So let's pop those guys out. We'll clean them up and inspect them in a little bit, but what we'll do first, I'm just going to use some brake cleaner to clean inside there. And all the excess will evaporate. I'm going to use a little bit of air to spray the rest of that out. Give me a moment. That really didn't do too much. It is grimy inside there. So let's repeat this process and get as much of this junk out of there as possible. Because all that grime, granules, and sludge can definitely cause a problem inside, because the tolerances inside these nailers are so small. So if something isn't seating properly, or if it's got shingle granules on an O-ring where it's not supposed to be, that can definitely cause issues. I just cleaned that O-ring a little bit, and I'm going to feel it for any sort of damages. I may not replace that one. That one might be okay. But not always are you able to feel any sort of damages or wear on the O-rings. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea to clean around in there again a little bit more, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to carry on here. So I've added some grease to these O-rings. Make sure it's a grease that can be used safely with O-rings. And be liberal with your grease as well. Now I'm going to also clean this next O-ring and apply some grease. And put it back inside. And there we go. Now, we're going to set that aside for a few moments. The cylinder, that can also definitely be cleaned up. We have a little bit of a burr here. I'm not sure if you can see that or hear that. I don't like it. That could also be a point of failure. I'm just going to use some 320 grit emery cloth just to smooth that out so there can be a proper seal there. Not really getting caught up on it too much anymore, but that's what we want to look for. We want to look for anywhere where just a little bit of air could escape through O-rings, seals. Getting a little bit better there. So I'm going to put this spring aside here. We're getting pretty grimy. Before we put any brake cleaner on there, I'm going to remove this seal. It's rubber, so we don't want to really expose that to brake cleaner. And we're going to pop that off. Clean it up. And set that aside. Going to get our little parts wash area going here again. it's looking closer to what we should be looking like over here. Take your time with these. It's not something that you want to rush too much. Now to get inside here, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take a little bit of fluff from a Q-tip. To get inside. It's not too bad. It's pretty dirty, but we're getting there. That's what it should look like. Compared to what it did, that's much better. I'm just feeling for any sort of burrs. Anything that could be problematic in the future. So we've got this part that we're getting cleaned up. Now we're going to put a little bit of grease on there. Again, grease that's safe for O-rings. We're going to pop that in place. And we were a little bit liberal with our grease, so we got it all over the place, of course. We'll clean up the spring. Lots of grime. These, especially roofing nailers, they're just exposed to so much tar, and grime, and junk. So now we've got this reasonably clean. We've got the O-rings off it, so we're gonna give a little spray. You'll want to feel for any sort of burrs or anything like that. So we'll continue to clean some of these O-rings. And again, if you bought a kit for replacing these O-rings, now's the time to do it. You got everything apart. Just I generally just keep a small kit here and replace what's visibly damaged. Now, not always will you see what's visibly damaged, but if you know what you're looking for, it does make it a little bit easier to diagnose issues you might be having. Okay, so we've got all that in place now. Gonna put some grease on this O-ring and pop that back into place here. Again, liberal with your O-ring friendly grease. It really makes a good seal if it's nice and clean inside and there's lots of grease. So, wipe off our hands a little bit here. One thing that I really encourage you to replace is the O-ring in the piston O-ring. So I'm going to grab a new piston O-ring, and I'm going to be very liberal with the grease. Helps prevent these from drying out, and it allows for a bunch of movement. So we're going to pull that piston out so we can work with it a little bit. and you want to make sure you put that grease on before you install the O-ring. For example, I put the grease on over here and then put it on, so it's all around the O-ring and not just on the exterior part of it. So, in a previous video, I forgot to put the spring in, but we're going to put our spring back in. And sometimes these are tricky to get in and to get them to seat properly. So we may have to work with that for a couple minutes. There we are. And then we're going to put this guy on, and sometimes this will go in nicely. Snap and snap beautifully. So we're going to know that this is in properly when this is flush with this, within reason. So we know that's now flush. We were only putting these screws in to help us take that out. So now we'll come over here and we're going to put a little bit of grease on our gasket. Helps really seal it quite well. We don't want to put it on that way because, as you can see, these holes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we want to have that over on that side. So make sure your gasket holes line up properly. Got the flatter area here and the really round area there. And we've already checked for any sort of burrs here, but I mean, if we had some burrs or if it wasn't super flat, we could sand that down just a little bit. Now, a couple parts that you could check in here and clean in here if you wanted to. Again, you'd pull these two screws off, this plate cover would come off, and then you'd have access to this plunger in here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give it a spray off and call it good. Hit it with a little bit of air. And that's good enough for me. I'm going to pop a bit of grease in here. So that's one area that does seal. Okay, now I'm going to pop this guy on. And then we're going to put our guards on. Like so. Pop our Allen keys in, and you can tighten up with your gun or your Allen keys. Wouldn't be a bad idea to replace this guard, but I'm not too concerned about it. It's ideal to hand tighten them first so you don't mess up any of the screw threads. That's a pretty standard practice anyways, to make sure that they feel like they're going in properly, because if you were to just put the screw in and hit it with the gun, you could mess up the threads if they're not lined up properly and cause further damage. So that's one of the things that can be a problem for these guns, is the O-rings, the seals, the gaskets. Now there are a couple of other things that we can look at. Now, excuse me, for example, we want to keep an eye on these springs, springs here. They're functional. Now if they're not functional, we would take an Allen key here, and we would open up inside here, inside this, essentially an access panel, plate cover, to be able to access the springs, so we could replace those. Another point of failure on these guns are the trigger assemblies. Now the trigger assemblies here can sometimes fail, and then if you know that they're failing, if they're leaking air out of here, and at that point what we can do is we would go in here with what I generally use is I use a punch on these pins here. I use a punch and a hammer to start it and just get it in maybe a couple millimeters, maybe a millimeter or two, and then what I'll use is just a nail and punch that through, and then eventually you'll be able to get this portion out with some finagling. Now you'd also need to be able to remove this guy here, and I'll just do that now just so you can kind of see. So we're going to pop this Allen key out. We're going to pop that off, and now to get in here, again, what you would need to do is pop these out, and then once this pin is out, this will be able to be removed after you get 1, 2, 3, 4 Allen keys out, and then that will slide out, and then you'll be able to gain access to this trigger mechanism. Now this silver portion here, that unscrews counterclockwise, so there's a flat area there that you'll be able to get at to unscrew that, and then this portion will also unscrew and then pull out, or sorry, this will unscrew, this will pull directly out, since this will be out of the way, and then you'll have some O-rings and seals in there as well that could be replaced, but maybe we can do that another day on another video. If you hear in the background, my Border Collie slash Australian Shepherd is getting a little antsy. She's running around playing with her toys right now. So hopefully that this video just gives you some more confidence in finding what might be wrong with your pneumatic air nailer, giving you the confidence to replace some parts to save you some money, because this can be an expensive endeavor to get someone else to find the issue for you. So yeah, I mean, if you feel confident in trying to find the issue, it does not, you know, take too many tools. I mean, an Allen key, I have the drill, but a few little tools, and you'll be able to figure this out. So hopefully that helps you solve your issue. Good luck. Bye.